President Johnson offered America's full support to this new, untried leader.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. General Taylor and I have known General Kahn for a considerable period of time. He has our admiration, our respect, and our complete support.
How do you do?
You know, the Vice Premier...
McNamara barnstormed South Vietnam with Kahn, trying to promote him to his own people. Privately, McNamara was gloomy. He warned Johnson that the Viet Cong controlled 40% of the countryside.
We are here to emphasize that the United States will maintain its interest and its presence in your country. There is no question whatsoever of our abandoning that interest. We'll stay for as long as it takes. We shall provide whatever help is required to win the battle against the communist insurgents.
To the communists in Hanoi, America's presence in the South was yet another act of foreign aggression. They recalled 1,000 years of struggle against foreign invaders: Chinese, Japanese, French. And now they faced Americans. Ho Chi Minh stepped up his support for the Viet Cong at the same time Johnson renewed the American commitment to defeat them. Each responded to the chaos in the South with new resolve.
During the final months of 1963, Diem was shot and Kennedy was assassinated. So the situation in the South changed. Just at that time, President Ho Chi Minh called on all Vietnamese to double their efforts to help the people in the South. The resistance forces in the South were still very weak and badly equipped. In certain areas, they had trouble recruiting troops. Therefore, we decided that well-equipped and larger forces had to be sent to the South.
Hanoi decided to escalate the war, and the Viet Cong stepped up their attacks in the countryside.
When Lyndon Johnson inherited the presidency, he inherited many things, but one of them was the legacy of the Vietnam War. And the Democratic presidents felt need not to lose 1 square foot of territory to communism, particularly in Asia, to draw the line, to hold the line, and to keep the presidency thereby. Because if you lose, the final domino in the domino sequence is not some Asian country, it's the presidency itself.
In 1964, the pressure on Johnson to hold the line against communism came from Republican conservatives. In July, they nominated Senator Barry Goldwater for president. He was an outspoken anti-communist.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no life.
Johnson wanted a big victory, and he wanted to keep Vietnam out of the campaign. As early as May, he had his aides draft a resolution of congressional support for the war effort.
It was discovered, however, in researching the Senate that the introduction of such a resolution would cause a very major filibuster by 2 or 3 strong opponents of the war at the time, and therefore do more harm than good, create not consensus but conflict. Therefore, by June 15th, 64, the idea of a resolution had been shelved.
In late July, the USS Maddox, a destroyer on an intelligence mission, sailed into the Gulf of Tonkin off North Vietnam. It was later joined by the USS Turner Joy. These 2 destroyers became involved in an incident which brought the congressional resolution off the shelf. The Navy explained the incident this way.
In international waters in the Gulf of Tonkin, Destroyers of the United States Navy are assigned routine patrols from time to time. Sunday, August the 2nd, 1964, the destroyer Maddox was on such a patrol. Shortly after noon, the calm of the day is broken as general quarters sound. In a deliberate and unprovoked action, 3 North Vietnam PT boats unleash a torpedo attack against the Maddox. At once, the enemy patrol boats are brought under fire by the destroyer.
The film charged an unprovoked attack, but it left out crucial facts. Early in the morning of July 31st, unmarked South Vietnamese patrol boats had attacked 2 North Vietnamese island bases, part of a covert operation supported by the CIA. The next night, the Maddox was cruising up the coast, at one point as close as 5 miles. It changed course, and early on August 2nd was 10 miles off one of the islands raided earlier. North Vietnam's patrol boats attacked the Maddox 6 hours later. Hanoi linked the Maddox to the South Vietnamese raids. At the time, Secretary McNamara stressed that the Maddox was simply on a routine patrol.
No, it has no special relationship to any operations in that area. We're carrying routine patrols of this kind on all over the world all the time.
Following the Sunday attack, the Maddox is joined by the USS Turner Joy. As directed by the President of the United States, the Maddox and Turner Joy resume patrol operations in the Gulf of Tonkin. On the night of August the 4th, North Vietnamese patrol boats strike again, as filmed in this recreation.
The determination of all Americans to carry out our full commitment to the people and to the government of South Vietnam will be redoubled by this outrage. Yet our response for the present will be limited and fitting. We Americans know, although others appear to forget, the risk of spreading conflict. We still seek no wider war.
For the first time, American aircraft bombed North Vietnam. The retaliation came after the second incident, an incident Hanoi has always denied.
Đêm mùng 4, Đế quốc Mỹ.
On the night of August 4th, the United States made public the so-called Gulf of Tonkin incident. But the story was a fabrication created by the U.S. National Security Council. Even as the National Security Council met, American aircraft were being sent to destroy several areas of our country. In reality, the second Gulf of Tonkin incident never happened.
At that time, I felt it was questionable whether the second incident took place. I simply was not sure. It was not until after a number of days of collation of reports in the field had taken place that many of the reports which seemed to relate to the second incident were proved either to be unsound or to relate to the first incident. This is what intelligence analysis is all about. And in a military situation, quite often, the commanding officers, in this case the President of the United States, don't wait for the details to be settled. If they feel they're in a critical situation with a danger of military conflict, they make decisions without waiting for the intelligence detail.
He felt that it represented, if not an escalation of the war on their part, at least a punch in the nose in a way that would humiliate a great power if it didn't respond. All of this went through his mind, and he also saw it as one dramatic way in which, after weeks and months of seeming indecision, he could convey to Hanoi, to Saigon, and to the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue that you were not dealing with a softie.
Well, I think that President Johnson has done the correct thing. I really do.
I don't think that he could have done otherwise.
You feel,
especially when they attacked our American flag, yeah.
I'm behind him on it. I'm not for Johnson. I'm for Goldwater, but I'm behind him on this.
The minute incident number 1 happened, the attack on our ships, the resolution was brought right back off the shelf, put right to Congress, and of course, after incident number 2, sailed through with virtually no dissent, a blank check.
Senator William Fulbright, persuaded the second incident had occurred, whisked the resolution through Congress in 2 days.
Well, I think it's a very clear demonstration of the unity of the country behind the policies that are being followed by the President in South Vietnam, and more specifically of the action that was taken in response to the attack upon our destroyers. It shows a practically unanimous approval. It was unanimous in the House, and only 2 dissented in the Senate.
Being in the minority never proves that you're wrong. In fact, history is going to record that Senator Greening and I voted in the interest of the American people this morning when we voted against this resolution. And I'd have the American people remember what this resolution really is. It's a resolution which seeks to give the President of the United States the power to make war without a declaration of war.
Lyndon Johnson signed into law the Tonkin Gulf Resolution. Congress gave the President full authority for military action in Southeast Asia.